Welcome to the Sales Lead Dog Podcast, hosted by CRM technology and sales process expert Christopher Smith, talking with sales leaders that have separated themselves from the rest of the pack. Listen to find out how the best of the best achieve success with their team and CRM technology. And remember, unless you are the lead dog, the view never changes.
Welcome to Sales Lead Dog. Today, I have joining me Jim Moineau. Jim is the Senior Director of Channel Sales for Transaction Network Services. Jim, welcome to Sales Lead Dog.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Chris. I appreciate it.
Tell me a bit about your company.
So, Transaction Network Services, or TNS, simply takes care of the problem of getting your phone calls answered for outbound callers, all right? Issue is you have a contact center, you do an outbound campaign in a business to consumer model. Well, the phone numbers that you're dialing now are mobile, and mobile suppliers don't have to present an ANI or a name on the phone. And so a 10-digit comes across. And then if that number is being used in a manner that gets a lower score, it's going to come over as risk of spam, spoof, robocaller, telemarketer. And so we help customers avoid that. We brand their name up to 32 characters. And we also have a zero trust program for spoof protection. Financial services companies are hot on this. Yeah. Healthcare probably will follow soon after. But it ensures that the number that's being called comes from the originating source. In the contact center world or the UC world, it is possible to change the from number. And if the terminating carrier doesn't check thoroughly, those calls go through. And so there can be someone calling like they're coming from a bank. They could say, oh, we saw that you were at the gas station this morning or Starbucks, and there's a probability that that happens. And they say, oh, yeah, we saw some bad activity on your account. So they send a text. We want you to click on that text. And it looks like your bank and everything. And you start adding your info in. And guess what? They're running a keylogger. Yeah. All of a sudden, they have your password and login info. And they can go to town on your personal information and your account. So we help customers with getting phone calls answered, improving those outbound campaigns. And we help secure the voice channel for those same enterprises to protect their brand, protect the consumer, their customers, and that's what we do. So
yeah, that's huge. That is so huge, because these days and age, the people that want to do nefarious things are really good at it.
Yep, and it's and I'm 100% channel, and for the people who are trying to pick up the phone and start a conversation with someone about new business, a new logo, you're gonna get a reaction. If you get someone on the phone, you ask them about this product. Do you have this problem? And they personally have that, because no one answers 10-digit dials that are not in their contact list. Right. And it's impacting their overall business. It's also good for upsell, cross-sell within current accounts. So anyway, so there's that.
Yeah. So today is a bit of an unusual episode for Sales Lead Dog, because normally I have on sales leaders and we talk about their path into sales leadership. Jim, Mr. Contrarian here, has decided to forego sales leadership, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So before we get into that, Jim, you got to answer my first question I ask everyone. You're not going to get by that one. What are the three things that have really driven and led to your success? And everyone should know Jim is a top performer. He is really, really good at what he does. So with that in mind, Jim, what are the three things that have really driven and led to your success?
Well, I can say some cute things like, with my wife, she'll say, no for me is maybe. So there's that. I have two speeds. One is fast, the other's off. So I don't slow down and I don't stop. So tenacity is huge. You've got to really believe in it. And, when you get into selling or interacting, rejection should be a good sign. Something's happening. When the rejections stop, it's either pens come out or there's a problem. and you have to go back to figure out what the problem is. So I, early on, started as a hard worker. I was a chef, and that's really where I started. And jokingly, when I stepped into sales, which was in 1986, so I did this around divestiture, I always joke that, hey, if the selling thing doesn't work out, I can always go back to my trained profession. So I could always go back cooking. And I always say that every year. But the truth is that you got to work hard. You can't not work hard. And in my first sales job, I sold beepers, pagers,
Oh yeah, that's going back.
hospitals, state police. I had flight attendants and pilots, and they're all on beepers in the day. No one was doing cell phones. It was even before the bag phone that came out. But my first sales job, they gave me a roll of quarters. Yep, I hit the road, and it was 40 quarters. Those were my outbound dials from payphones. Hopefully they were in decent shape when I made my calls. But as I was on the road in between appointments, cold calls, knocking on doors, I was dropping quarters in and using my yellow pages, or I was using the want ads for, territory specific accounts. And, I was looking to get myself into, and I was up in Boston at the time, many of the major companies outside of 128, 495 that I was targeting. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
And I don't think I hit 3, but
you didn't. I was just going to remind you.
I was going to say hard work,
Yep.
Rejection is the beginning and not the end. And it should be, welcome. And you never give up. And I think there is something else I laid into my life that I really resonate with, and that is you either win or get out quickly. Don't stay in something.
Right.
If it doesn't seem to be bearing fruit, don't feel embarrassed like you failed. Consider it maybe a warning shot that this is going to not bear fruit, and just suck your time. So, it's something that if you're going to win quickly. Time is the killer, time is the changer of all deals, or the killer of all deals. So speed is necessary.
Yep.
Okay.
Awesome. So you started in sales. What were some of the key lessons, or excuse me, you started in sales selling beepers, pagers.
Yeah.
What were some of the key lessons you took away from that first job?
Well, be prepared for almost anything, I sold like 2 pagers to a tow garage, and back in the day it was triplicate forms, you got grease all over those forms, and hopefully they were legible when I got back. But when I started getting into more of the corporate sales, I sold some large hospitals outside of the UMass Memorial footprint. Well, Memorial was one of the hospitals. St. Vincent's is just a very big hospital footprint in the Worcester market. And it was becoming polished professional and getting better at that. And I did. And I got into some large accounts, including the state police, Cisco Foods. I had some large accounts that I actually managed all of digital equipment in the day, and they were big up till 91, 117 facilities, and I managed that whole relationship.
Yeah.
And that actually got my appetite, accelerated for something bigger. And after 7 interviews, and essentially it was sort of like going into the Secret Service, these exams they would run at AT&T,
Yeah.
Which were psychological in nature,
Yeah.
Okay, stop. The proctor would have you stop, go back to question 25,
Right.
Erase your answer, move it 2 to the left. If you hadn't gotten to 25, you're freaking out, I guess. So you have to go through this whole process, and I got through that, and I finally got hired up with AT&T in their commercial markets group, which was a win-back group, because MCI had, McGowan's company, it started making inroads. Right. And hit the street. And by the first year of selling, I was their number 1 guy out of 1,400. And a lot of it came down to, taking what I had learned, in terms of hard work, but also becoming more professional and applying it to a great brand. And this was
Yeah.
AT&T of the day when it was New Jersey based
Oh yeah,
AT&T.
the original AT&T, not what's out
And
there
we had
today.
everything. We
Yeah,
had long lines. We had, I had switch tours. I could take people to Bell Labs.
yeah.
It was fascinating. It
Oh
was
yeah,
like, wow, this is a great American company, which,
yeah,
I watched get somewhat disassembled as I was there.
yeah,
And I ended up, getting myself into AT&T Solutions, and I was selling managed solutions. I opened up their Cisco resale practice. I did a massive deal to Thomson Reuters, EMC, a
yeah.
large managed network deal, State Street, and a variety of others.
Yeah.
I rode with a lot of my counterparts who were in the globals team.
Yeah.
Uh, so anyway, so
Yeah.
there.
So Jim, you said you had to get more polished. Did someone come up and tell you that, or did you realize that on your own?
Um, so they liked me there, and I was in what was called highly promotable. So I was getting gigged to go layers above. And it meant, I could get classes at Sloan, MIT's business school, and it meant that I would have gone to corporate New Jersey
Yeah.
and done a tour in operations and a tour in manufacturing and a tour in services. And I had an opportunity to become the vice president of one of the large branches, and I had a moment where I was just having run teams at that point, sales management, and I liked my teams and I built good teams, but it was clear to me that I could never apply the standards I held to myself to others because it failed. I was too hard on people.
Right.
In some cases, it caused me issues. And others, I just started to tune it back. And I used the word, I don't want to move in, I want to move up. And it was that pivot that, I went into AT&T Solutions. I ended up working in AT&T's Alliance channel, and then I followed a group of professionals over, AT&T Solutions people, the outsourced team to Global Crossing, and unfortunately, we landed there in 2001 when that company fell apart.
Yeah.
And it was a big change for me. I then went off and did some software sales and things like that before I landed at Masergy.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so,
So I love what we're going to talk about here because it's so different from what we normally talk about here on Sales Lead Dog. Where we talk about how people they're already established, they've made it to the top of the leadership totem pole or the hierarchy, whatever you want to call it.
yep.
But you're a top performer. You've consistently been a top performer throughout your career. So from your perspective, what makes a great sales leader for a top performer?
It's a hard one. I mean, because I guess there's the 80-20 rule, and maybe some cases it's the 10-90, and so your boss is really relegated to the 90 that they're really managing, and so leave me alone. To some degree, it's
Mhm.
just let me do my thing, and let me make you look good. But that's sometimes harder than stated. It could be that someone's ego is too connected with control and needing to show up when the Happy Gilmore sized check is handed out. Got to be there for the handshake and everything,
Yeah.
and take credit for things. But I would say that I have had excellent bosses in my career, but what they usually have are they have the capability of seeing their universe in segments. And if there are those that need development, they're talked to separately. I don't like team calls where there's corrective communications going on that are really earmarked for a very few. It
Exactly.
is
Yeah.
it is a waste of time.
Yep.
It is time that you will never get back.
Yeah.
and it's insulting to me to have that done. It disturbs me to see that done in front of others, and
Yeah.
it sometimes it appears to be punitive and not really inspirational.
Right.
So to use those calls as a universal area to air all things is a bad idea. So
I love that as an example where I think a lot of sales leaders are like, oh, I got to treat everybody the same.
no,
Any leader will tell you absolutely
no.
not. You've
I
got to
mean,
understand who the individual is,
right.
and you need to lead the team, but you need to treat them as individuals because different people need different things at different times. And that's your job as a leader, understand that and engage them that way.
I mean, look at Jack Welch. I mean, he was a pioneer with Six Sigma, and the concept there is that your top 30 are you do everything you can to move compensation, clear the path, make it frictionless, and enable them to do what they can do to create more value for this firm. The middle is a question mark. They're to be developed or pushed out, and the bottom third, get rid of them.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it out of, harshness, but if you want to have, and I feel this really strongly, that if you have a paper performance culture or a performance culture, you really need to tend the bottom. It's meaningful.
Right.
If you allow people to hang out, and I've heard adages like back in the day when there were hiring freezes that bad breath was better than no breath. I'm like, whatever. Like this sounds like bad corporate culture, but leaving them around has an impact on the rest of the team. So,
what are some of the biggest mistakes you've seen sales leaders do? Not necessarily related to you, but just you've been doing this a long time. You've seen a lot. What are some of the common big mistakes you see them lead beyond what we just talked about?
I think, other than, off spreadsheet, financing, that's a problem, getting companies into
Yeah, we're not talking
chapter
anything
11.
illegal.
I mean, I was there.
Yeah.
I saw IRU swaps going down. Don't want to get into, I won't say who.
Yeah.
Anyway, I will say this. At the crux of a relationship is trust. If I'm going to put my heart and soul on the table for a firm that I represent, and then a boss who is directly, benefiting from this effort, I'm looking for a level of respect and protection, the umbrella, let's call it. I don't want it to rain crap on me. And it's their job, if anything, is to make my life easier, better, so I can do more for them.
Right.
So when there is either a lack of trust or there's a change in direction with regards to that, and you feel like you have a trust model going, and you've come to find out that you're being fed to the wolves on the on the management side, or just that they're not good at that. Something happens with your pay and they know about it and they don't tell you, for instance, that's a big no-no.
Oh, that's a huge no-no. You don't mess with people's
Huge
pay.
no-no. And I had one of those happen with a very large commission check.
Yeah.
And it was getting loaded into the payment tool. And my boss knew a week beforehand. And my wife to this day says, well, you're really hard on him. And I had to tell her, that's what happened. She goes, well, that's a good reason to have had a problem. Yeah.
No, it's like you don't screw with people's pay. That's rule number one.
It's a contract. And
it is a contract.
And then so, and what you have there is then the tough job about middle management, and having been at Global Crossing during a lot of layoffs, I had to lay off 61 people. I ended up going over as a sales executive, and then my boss at the time didn't like the VP who was running the region, so I got that, and then some other higher level VP had moved on. I had 117 people rolling up to me, good people, and the pink slips just kept coming.
Yeah.
And I was doing the bidding of the business. I was not in any way. It didn't matter if I liked it or didn't like it. I had to shove this stuff on people, and it resulted in a lot of anger and a lot of, bad feelings, and I
Yeah.
had some death threats and, stuff like
Yeah.
that.
That's brutal.
It's just brutal. And I'm just say that, and then that's an extreme in this case. But when your boss thinks that the real reason for their being is to push the corporate, edicts onto the sellers, they should check themselves.
Yeah.
That's not going to inspire. It's not going to get your people to do more for you, or to even feel good about themselves,
Yeah.
because not a
Yeah.
great yeah.
Yeah. So we were talking earlier, and you told me you've had some excellent bosses in your career.
Yeah.
Again, from your perspective as a top performer, what was it about them that makes you say they were excellent?
They left me alone. It
Is
was
there
that
anything
pretty much.
beyond that than leaving you alone? Because I
Um,
imagine it's more than
well,
just
they
leaving
became
you
fr-
alone.
well, they became friends. They're people I respected. They respected me. They had good business acumen. Um, they understood the segmenting of the sales team. They didn't drag us through, the repetitive, um, mantras that they had for improvement.
Yeah.
There must
Yeah.
be this in Salesforce. Your contact rates aren't high enough. I mean, it's just like, oh God, here we go on.
Yeah.
And what you put in for the month, or
Yeah.
and KPIs in general.
Yeah.
So if the KPIs are revenue, yes, that's what
Yeah.
I'm here for,
Yeah.
is selling and getting commission. That's the KPI I care about.
Yeah. So I think a lot of sales leaders, well, I should say a lot, but I think there are sales leaders out there that want to lean on their top performers to help the segments that maybe aren't performing as well. What's your opinion on that in your experience with that?
It can be okay.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair ask of a leader to, if it's done with, a limited exposure. But
I think that's the key.
yeah, and I think that I would, look, I manage people, and they had me as a leader, and so I got to see how hard it is. But I would often give my overall perspective and go to market thinking, which is work hard, get up early, do your chores,
Yeah.
and then, and do all these things and have fun.
Yeah.
And some of why I selected, a non-manager. Well, I manage lots of revenue. It's the way I look at it. I
Right.
cross-functionally manage. I
Right.
get it. You treat them with respect. Everybody I work with, regardless if they're billing, operations, shipping, whatever it is. I mean, they're people. They have
Yeah.
families.
Yeah.
Know that.
Yeah.
You treat them well. But it's so that I have time back in my life. I mean, I'm not earning a paycheck and, slinging a product for the good of the company. I'm doing it for the good of Jim, and I'm doing it for the good of my family. But I also want to have time for myself to enjoy my life before,
Yeah.
time passes on. You do this for 40 years and you're in your 60s, and, there's not as much runway in front of you. You better be having fun.
Right.
Better.
Yeah. It's I talk about this all the time that as a leader, you need to understand the why of every individual, to really be able
Yes.
to be effective, to motivate them and all of that. Um, have you ever had bosses come to you and ask you, Jim, what's your why? What's your motivator?
Yeah.
Or, what's that
Well,
been like for you?
here's one that I hadn't thought of for a while. It's a good question. Um, is, are you motivated by the carrot or the fear of the stick?
Right. Right.
And
No, it's a
as an
great way to ask that.
example,
Yeah.
And I'm a former Catholic. Nothing against Catholics, but I had nuns. They
Oh
hovered
yeah.
me.
Yeah.
I'm one of 6 kids, in 9 years. So I was in one of those families where, you had to do your chores, or else. And things had to be in order before you went to school. You had to do your homework. We played, we had all kinds of, time to ourselves, but there were repercussions for not doing those things you were supposed to do. And I think that has played heavy in my mind ever since. It's not something I can uningrain, I can unprogram entirely. I have relaxed more. I don't feel as under the gun, but I do care about finishing first. I do like winning. I did. I'm not exactly Ricky Bobby saying, number two is the first loser, but let's just say I care about it. It's just, there's been so many good,
I forgot all
movies
about that movie, that
about
line.
me
That's so
because
funny.
he is a Ricky Bobby,
Yeah. First
reference.
loser.
Never terrible, never terrible.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think, and the reward is great, but what's funny is that I think I'm probably insecure enough to say that I need recognition. I I need to be important. I care about how people think about me. Kind of goes to the golden rule, do unto others, but it literally has a framework within. I really care how people think about me.
Right.
It
Right.
upsets me when we aren't successful in something and someone's disappointed. I can't solve all those problems because maybe it's a product we have. But I do. If it's a relationship that's involved in it, like a partner who I've been working with, and we weren't successful, we put in effort. Um, that weighs on me at some level, and I
Yeah.
and that does motivate me. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, you made me think of something as you were talking there about you love to be recognized. I imagine you can tell when a boss has just blown smoke versus being truly authentic in how they recognize your achievements. Um, have you had that, people just blowing smoke at you where like, come on, you're just stroking me? Um,
Well, um, or they're not seeing what they get with me, or
right,
yeah. So I would, are you? What are you looking at? I have a very, at this point in my career, I have a really long, deep bench of contacts that I've, you know, I've sold for many years to, with, for, as a peer of. I mean, hundreds, right?
yeah,
And it's not just how big my LinkedIn is. I mean, these are people who, let's just say it's a good 400 people that are friends,
yeah, yep,
and you develop them.
yep,
So, that's meaningful and important in how we operate, because it gets the things done, and brings about an ability to get contracts over the line, and or even in a new venue, the ability to be considered, even though it's a new product and a new situation. It's Jim coming, right?
yeah,
But I'll say this, that those who are authentic set it up front pretty early, and you know it, and it's more like, I'm really excited to be with you. Your success speaks for itself. I really appreciate you allowing me to manage you,
yeah,
and I don't even think of managing you. Please let me know whatever you need from me, let me know. And it's something like that. It's
right,
not complex.
right,
And then you test it. Well, it's not even you test it. You say, hey, I'm having problems with a contractor. I'm having problems with this individual. And they'll say, let me lean in on that, or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. That's awesome. I think you summed that up pretty well. Because again, it goes back to trust.
yeah,
And people aren't stupid. They're like customers. If you're being inauthentic with your customers, know. Employees are the
yeah,
same way. We're all people. We can smell when something isn't
right.
right. if it's off. We know.
Yeah, it's something
And
else I like to say. Oh, something else along the same
yeah,
lines I like to say is this: um, no one needs a new sales guy. They don't. They need a they need they need someone who is going to be a consultant. They need a partner.
yeah,
They need a friend. Someone
yeah,
who's going to listen. And I also like to say that, and I say this to new customers because,
right.
if you're talking to them the first time, I say, I'll bet you're trying to figure out, as I'm saying things, what I'm saying is a lie. Okay.
Right.
Because I'm a sales guy.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I'm lying, but you're trying to figure out what's real and what's not
Right.
and what you should be keying in on. Now, you might have done research on my firm, blah, blah, but the net is that there is a level of you're being tested and they're gauging trust if they don't know you. So a lot of what I've found in the channel, which is extremely meaningful, is nail a relationship with somebody, and they introduce you, your time to get something moving, it moves along so much faster
Oh yeah.
because part of a trust circle.
Yeah, for sure. Shifting gears a bit, CRM, do you love it or do you hate it?
Um, Honestly, I find it for the most part for somebody else, not for me.
Yeah.
And I'm not, and I don't, I understand its need depending on what kind of company you're working for. It's a private company wanting to go public. They've got to be able to monetize. They've got to be able to say things like how many contacts are going out, how many touch points,
Yeah.
KPIs that are beyond just revenue. But I find that a lot of what you end up doing is repetitive, or it's to be asked, for instance,
Yeah.
what did you do this week? Well, can't you look in the CRM tool? You've asked me to fill it in, and so I feel this to be repetitive, and
Right.
and I did update notes. So
Right.
is it now you don't trust me? I guess so. Now you're
Yeah.
saying you
Yeah.
trust what I so that seems to be, what do you
Yeah.
want? Do you want me to give it to you here, then you put it in, or do you want me to tell you?
Yeah.
So those kind of behaviors around CRM. So I'm not sure if it's a really just like the CRM. I think it's an adherence to how you use the CRM.
Oh man, I could not agree more that um, to me, like what you described, that's like old school CRM. It's not really helping anybody.
No.
It's what CRM was 10 years ago. And for far too many companies, it still is.
Mm,
They're not leveraging CRM or they haven't configured it. They haven't created it in a way that's
mm.
truly enabling the sales team as a tool that's helping them drive business. It's not a status reporting tool. If you're using it to report status, you've completely missed the boat.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
What
I
advice do
would
you
say
have?
that, and I would just say that most of the firms I've worked for
Yeah.
are in that mode that they have to test that
Yeah.
which was put in, or they don't like which was put in.
Right.
So it's this back and forth. And how much of
Yeah.
your sales call is talking about the CRM, not
Yeah.
talking about sales? I don't
Yeah.
know. And it's like, I don't want to be on this call.
Right.
It's annoying. Maybe you could record it and maybe I'll listen to it. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
There you go.
Um, what
So,
advice do you have for a sales leader when it comes to um, a top performer that's like you? Let's say, hey, look, your CRM's not really helping me. I'm not going to use it, or I'm going to use it at the bare minimum. Um,
get him
what's your
someone
opinion on
who
that?
get him an admin who can do it. I had that in
Yeah,
my, I had get
100%.
me an admin, and we have a 15-minute call,
Yeah,
and they key in on the stuff that is on the report that's going to the
yeah,
CEO.
yeah,
What do you need? And we just have
exactly.
that call, and that's
Yeah,
it. We're done.
yeah,
Perfect.
yeah. If
And
that's
then
the way your CRM is set up, get admins for your top performers. I love that. It's spot
yep,
on, the right answer. I
right.
The worst thing they could do is take you away from selling. It's the
Mhm.
worst, dumbest thing they can do. The whole idea is we want you out there selling. We don't want you being a data entry clerk.
And then you get hit with, listen, until you have an account, it's not a contact, it's a lead. I'm like, uh-huh. And then they give you more explanation.
Yeah.
And then when it's an opportunity and it's at this percentage level, then we can actually, do blah, blah. I'm just like, oh my God, the rules around this.
No,
Someone else
that
run
stuff
with this
drives
stuff.
me crazy too. Like when
Yeah.
it's this stage, it's this probability. No, it's not.
Right.
I know the probability. If you're good, you know the probability right up front. It doesn't change as you go. I mean, it might a little bit, but not like the way they set that up, where it's starting at 0, then it goes to 15, then it goes to 30. That is so absurd.
I would just say that, to frame up with the CRM, that's a very specific thing that a leader could do is assist the top people. But in general, work on trust with your top people.
Yep.
And if you have that, then let them fly.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't, remove friction, remove obstacles, be their advocate, protect them. They're your most valuable assets, and try not to lose them, to the competition.
Yep.
And hopefully the business that you're leading within allows you to do that. Both from pay for performance standpoints and culture.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Well, Jim, we're at our time here on Sales Lead Dog. People want to reach out and connect with you. Maybe they want to work with you. What's the best way for them to do that?
So, my email for work is jmoineau@tnsi.com. My mobile number is 978-376-8600, or meet me down in Palm Beach for some fishing sometime, or up on the Northeast coast for some tuna. But that's what I do when I'm not, doing the sales thing. It's my
flight right now, Jim.
It's my jam outside of the sales world. I appreciate the time today, Chris. I really do.
Yeah, this has been great. If you didn't catch any of that, don't worry about it. We have it in our show notes. You can get that at impellercrm.com/sales lead dog, where you'll get not only this episode with Jim, but all our 100+ episodes of Sales Lead Dog. So be sure to check that out. Be sure to subscribe so you get all our future episodes as well. Jim, thank you so much for coming on the show, and welcome to the Sales Lead Dog Pack.
Thank you, sir. Take care, Chris.
As we end this discussion on Sales Lead Dog, be sure to subscribe to catch all our episodes. On social media, follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Watch the videos on YouTube, and you can also find our episodes on our website at impellercrm.com/Sales Lead Dog. Sales Lead Dog is supported by Impeller CRM, delivering objectively better CRM for business, guaranteed.